Hi, today the weather is terrible. It's dull, it's miserable and it's murky. There's a sort of mist hanging, and at times even between me and that hedgerow that I'm trying to film there's mist. You can see it. In the days of film we had a term for these sort of lighting conditions. We called it F8 at a fortnight. Very dull, and you couldn't take pictures in this light in the days of film, but of course today we can. With digital cameras we can just keep boosting the ISO and go almost as fast as you'd like, but it's still dull and miserable. So I'm not actually attempting to take any stills pictures at all. I'm only shooting video because of the lighting conditions, and video works in really dull light, much duller than stills photography. You just don't notice it. It's wonderful. So I'm using the Lumix GH6, the 150 to 400mm lens. I've got the 1.4 external extender on, and sometimes I'm putting the built-in 1.25 as well. Ideally, rather than take the 1.25 out of position, I would take the 1.4 off, but that's taken me longer to do. And sometimes the birds are a bit distant and sometimes they're closer. So I'm keeping the 1.4 on and just using the 1.25 by just throwing a switch like that when I want to. And what I'm trying to photograph is the fieldfares and the redwings and blackbirds as well. Though mostly it's been blackbirds and redwings. I'm not sure I've got any footage of fieldfare yet. When I first got here earlier on this morning, I just walked up on top of this bridge, and I've got the advantage that I'm high up on this humpback bridge and I'm dead level with that hawthorn hedge, and redwings, fieldfares and blackbirds were feeding there, and they were coming reasonably close but not quite close enough. But that's because I'm standing by this wall, and I thought to myself, if I get down lower so that only my head can be seen over the top of the wall, in fact my head is hidden by the camera as well, they're going to come closer still. So I went back to the car and got all my gear, including the camping stool, so I can be sitting low behind this wall, and it's worked. They are coming onto the berries. There's one very red bush there, or branch really. It's just a very large branch full of berries, and they're hardly touching that. I've noticed this before with the winter thrushes. There's some berries they just don't like. There's a whole hawthorn tree somewhere and they just won't touch it. Perhaps later on in the winter, when they become more desperate, they'll come and feed on it. But at the moment they're feeding to the left and the right of it and ignoring the main, most colourful berries, which is a pity because photographically they look better on the red berries. I did only end up with film of blackbirds and redwings. The fieldfares didn't come close enough. So this is a redwing, one of our winter visiting thrushes, and you can see why it's called a redwing. It shows up quite well in flight as well. And this bird is about to regurgitate a seed, presumably out of the hawthorn berry that it swallowed earlier. They reject an awful lot of the berries that they pick. You see them pick it and then just spit it straight back out again. They don't swallow it. Sometimes it's noticeable. If he was to pick one of those very black looking ones, there's an excellent chance they just spit it back out again. They do go for the brighter, fresher looking berries. And because the berries on this bush now are getting a bit scarce, they've got to keep hopping around, and quite often they take a berry in flight. So the bird will launch itself at a berry and grab it and then land again. See, the autofocus copes quite well with this moving bird, even though there's lots of vegetation in the way. Goes out of focus there just briefly but comes back in. I'm reluctant to use manual focus here because the vibration that I would cause as soon as I handle the lens. This is the only clip that's taken in slow motion because I was reluctant to shoot at the higher shutter speeds you need for slow motion, which is only 2/50th of a second. But there just wasn't really enough light for that. And that's approximately 5 times slow. The next clip, I'm not really too sure what happens. The bird appears to eat an ivy berry, but it looks red, and ivy berries are black. Although when I googled it, I did find a few reddish looking ivy berries. I think if the bird had managed to grab that one, he would have spat it out. That one's better, it's brighter, looks fresher. But sometimes they pick a perfectly good looking one and still spit it out. No, he didn't like that one. Back to the bright red ones. The birds are being flushed from time to time because there's people walking up and down the towpath of this canal, but I always have to remind myself that although that's a bit of a problem, the birds have only become accustomed to people here because there's so many people walking up and down the towpath. So I'm actually always looking for places where birds have become habituated to people. Oh, there's a bird there now. Finding the bird in the viewfinder is always an issue, but I find if I look along the hot shoe here and I line the hot shoe up with the top of the lens, that gets me very close. So when I look through the viewfinder, the bird is usually in the viewfinder. The blackbird was also having to use the technique of flying at the berries because it couldn't reach them. I was trying to avoid situations where I got too much sky behind the bird because the sky was just white, wishy-washy. I don't really like it like that. You also have to start overexposing now, so that shot is 1 1/3 stops overexposed. Otherwise the camera would make the picture too dark. But I was trying to film the birds when they had the branches behind them rather than the sky. There were plenty of fieldfares around, but for some reason they just didn't come close, and there's no reason for that. They're not a more nervous species than redwing. I think the day's over now. I've been here a couple of hours, the light is starting to go, and a sparrowhawk just came through and it landed on top of the hawthorn hedge here. All the birds disappeared. I've probably only got to wait 10 minutes and they'll start to drift back in again, but the light is just getting worse and worse. But at least I've wrecked the place. Tomorrow, if it's a brighter day, I could be back here. Always got other things I could be doing too, so I've got to choose what to do. But now, at least I've sussed this out. When the light is dull and miserable, I've done my field work. I'm ready. If the light is better tomorrow, it's very hard to tell which way is west and east. I think that's south. So if I do come tomorrow, I want the better light in the afternoon because I'll be looking into the sun in the morning. The sun will come up there and go down here, I think. I need to look on the maps tonight to make certain. I'll finish off with a clip of a redwing taking slowberries. Now I've shown this before on YouTube. It was taken a few years ago, but it's my favourite redwing clip, so I'll show it again. Slowberries, of course, are a lot bigger than hawthorn berries. Thanks for watching.